For more on the latest out of Saudi Arabia, let's bring in Bloomberg News reporter Glen Carey. He joins me on the phone from Riyadh. Glen, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for your time today. We have been hearing, of course, these reports that some of the Saudi authorities have opened fire on some protesters before this day of rage. Talk to us about what is planned for tomorrow. Are these protests supposed to be nationwide?
Yes. The day of rage, the protests are going to be in Dammam in the eastern province, in Qatif, and Riyadh in Jeddah. But this evening in Jeddah so far it's been very quiet. I've been traveling around the streets this evening and haven't seen any indication of any uncertainty or turmoil or protest at all.
What's the Saudi government's response to this? Have they been encouraging people not to come out and protest?
Yes, they've issued warnings saying that protests are illegal in Saudi Arabia, and then the Council of Senior Islamic Scholars have also issued a statement saying that protests would harm the nation.
Glen, talk to us about the dynamic that has been sweeping the Middle East, because you've been there for a while. This, of course, starting in Tunisia and then rippling across to Libya, to Egypt. What type of information have Saudi citizens been receiving about what's going on in that region of the world?
Well, Saudi citizens have access to the Arabic satellite channels, so they've been watching very closely what's going on in Libya and in Egypt, and of course neighboring Bahrain. They're aware of the social unrest that is occurring. But it needs to be stressed that in Saudi Arabia, the average person, to me, hasn't indicated that they're going to participate in tomorrow's protest. And it's unclear where they'll actually be held. I mean, they say Riyadh and Jeddah in the eastern province, but so far it's very unclear exactly where the center of any protest, if they actually occur, will be.
And Glen, that's interesting, because you say the average citizen hasn't said to you that they'd be taking part in that. Why not?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of Saudi Arabia citizens feel that the government has actually helped them. They get free education. Their Medicare mostly is taken care of. And the government has provided them with a certain amount of assistance, whether through housing or social welfare. The hot spot in Saudi Arabia is the eastern province in cities called Awamiya and Qatif, where they have a Shia majority. Mm-hmm. And it is there that so far we have seen unrest.
So at the very least, then, what you're telling us, in some of the other nations in the Middle East, some of these issues have been economic, but those economic issues don't necessarily pertain to Saudi Arabia?
Not across the country, no, they do not. But in pockets, you can see that some Saudis are complaining about discrimination, particularly the Shia, and the cost of living has gone up quite significantly for some of them. I was on the phone today with activists in the eastern province, and they said, yes, there was a protest this evening, but it's very unclear whether or not the Saudi authorities used force to disperse the crowd, and we're trying to track that down, that bit of information.
I'm talking to Glen Carey of Bloomberg News. He's live on the phone from Riyadh. Glen, what sense are you getting from Saudi officials, or excuse me, Saudi citizens, on how they feel about the recent developments in the Middle East? Are they inspired? Are they apathetic? What sense do you get?
And I think they're concerned. You know, I've heard rumors of them stockpiling food. I think that everyone, the people that I'm speaking to in Saudi Arabia, are uncomfortable with what's going on, and they're worrying about how it'll impact them and their day-to-day lives.
Glen, what about what's been going on in the Saudi cities financially? We have been hearing reports from other places, such as Egypt, that some people were having problems accessing their money, going to ATMs. Some banks were closed. Are you getting a sense of that in Saudi Arabia, or is it business as usual?
Well, it seems to be business as usual. I went to the ATM machine today and withdrew money from my account. We haven't seen, I've spoken to a few bankers. No one has said to me that they're witnessing vast withdrawals of cash or moving, or that they're seeing accounts that they have with moving abroad.
Glen, in our final minute, I was wondering if I might ask you, as a journalist, as a reporter, as an observer of history on the ground there, what is your sense to the events that you've been witnessing, what you've been seeing in the region?
Well, they're monumental. I mean, Libya, Egypt, Tunisia, You know, we've seen the toppling of two leaders, the ouster of two leaders, Egypt and Tunisia. There's conflict ongoing in Libya. I think the big question is what happens in Saudi Arabia. It's the largest oil exporter in the world. It is the largest economy in the Middle East, and it's a member of the G20. And everyone is looking at Saudi Arabia to see if that will spread into the kingdom. And I think tomorrow, on March 11th, the Day of Rage, will give us an indication how the average or how Saudi Arabian citizens will react to what's going on elsewhere in the region.
All right, Bloomberg's Glen Carey joining us on the phone from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Glenn, thanks so much. We appreciate it.